The strain season 400 years of Earth kicks off this week with Herschel Walker continuing to still be weird, getting put on blast by one of his children, and getting so savagely roasted for his inept, inarticulate, goofy comments that at this point, I am astounded that the Republicans are still standing by him. What say you?
Part of me wants to be astounded, but part of me also says, this is their brand. They stick together. They don't care. And as we pointed out before, there are prominent people in conservative media that say, I don't care if he paid for an abortion. I want to control the Senate. And guess what? That's enough. Do you have an R by your name? That's enough for me.
That's enough. Sexual assault charges? Fine. Caught in hotel rooms with underage children? Not a problem. Gun-toting, hypocritical family values, lunatics while getting divorced and having threesomes? Okay with us. QAnon conspiracy people who think only the Democrats eat babies and rape children and not any Republicans, several of whom have been under child trafficking, porn charges, we welcome. So at this point, do you think he has a shot at winning?
It's Georgia. Yes. Unfortunately. He's demonstrably unqualified too. It's not just the fact that he's a hypocrite. He literally is not cognitively capable of being a senator. The things that the Senate has to work on, like imagine if you put him on the Senate Intelligence Committee. Are you kidding me?
It's shameful.
Should we talk about the CTE piece of it too? Because I believe some people don't want to fully tee off on him, don't want to fully let him have it, give him the full, the full canon of the criticism he deserves, because people think he's suffering from CTE and he's just kind of repeating his lines. He's repeating what he's told to say.
Okay, but even if he has CTE, let's say he does. Let's go with the theory that it's highly likely he could have CTE. Is he then in a condition to be running for Senate?
No.
Again, this country gets the leaders it settles for.
Yeah. You get the leadership you deserve. So when he gets into the Senate, he's just going to do whatever Mitch McConnell tells him to. I mean, which all the other senators do anyway, but like, he's just going to, what? All right, cool. I'll vote on this. I'll vote on that. I'll do whatever you tell me to. I just want to be a senator. I just want to be important. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it also begs the question, why does this guy want to be a senator? And it's just because he wants to be important. And some people came to him and blew some smoke up his ass and told him, hey, we want you.
And we want you because you can get the black vote.
Yeah, we predicted this more than a year ago, that high time for Black Republicans was going to come, because anybody who's willing to repeat the MAGA mantra, anyone who fully buys into MAGA dogma and also happens to be Black, they'll move heaven and earth to put you on a platform, be it having you run for Senate or be it trying to give you your own show. If you're going to come out here and be a culture warrior and do exactly what we tell you to do and say exactly what we tell you to say, including every once in a while, we're going to ask you to say, fuck those Black people. As long as you do that, and you can get just a handful of Black folks to either vote for you or at least not show up to vote for Democrats, we will embrace you. We'll give you all the money. We'll give you all the fame and glory that you want. But you better not actually think for yourself.
Right. That's ultimately the bullseye. As long as you're not thinking for yourself, the plan is working.
Yeah. Be a mouthpiece.
Shameful. The current polls are saying that the midterm elections are looking 50-50 either way. The Democrats have in their sling blade the whole abortion issue that has reared its ugly head in the last year. And the Republicans have in their pistol the Ukraine war and the recession that has peaked its head as well. What say you about the turnout of the midterm election?
Turnout for midterms tends to skew older. Why? Well, not that many people show up for midterms as presidential elections, and the people who have time to show up for midterms tend to be older. Those older people tend to vote Republican. Okay? You need younger Democrats to show up in a midterm election. Younger Democrats usually don't show up in a midterm election. Poor people generally don't show up in a midterm election. They can't get the time off. etc. And in order to motivate those people to go out and vote, unfortunately, you need a little bit more. And so we'll see. We'll see if those people are motivated enough to show up to vote. If you get something similar to a presidential turnout, then yeah, the Democrats will win. But the odds of getting something similar to a presidential turnout in a midterm are, not very good looking. So 50-50 is actually a big swing. Usually the party that is opposite the party of the president wins in the midterms. Going back to like the Great Depression, that's usually what happens. The party that is the opposite party of the incumbent president in the first midterm election after that president, usually that party wins.
Let me share some data that has emerged on Politico today. According to Politico, as of this morning, the battle to control the 50-50 Senate is at a stalemate, according to the most recent polls. With 30 days to go until Election Day, polling averages suggest Democrats and Republicans are each poised to win 50 Senate seats. Each party has a lead in just one seat currently held by the opposition. The Republican is slightly ahead in Nevada. The Democrats have a lead in Pennsylvania.
Yo, that Pennsylvania race is interesting.
That Pennsylvania race is very interesting, and that's one we're going to keep an eye on. Let me see if I can scroll down.
Yeah, we could do a whole episode about that guy.
Okay, let's see. So Arizona, last week's polls showed Democrat Senator Mark Kelly running ahead of Republican Blake Masters by 3 to 6 percentage points, respectively.
Mark Kelly's a doggone astronaut. He should be sweeping the floor with that guy.
It's shameful. It's shameful.
He's been to fucking space. His wife was Gabrielle Giffords, who was shot in the fucking head.
Right.
Arizona, this shouldn't be are you fucking kidding me?
Having said that, Masters has not led a single public poll after the primary or before it, and this week's survey suggested a comeback would be difficult. CNN poll reveals that the percentage of likely voters with an unfavorable opinion of Masters was 51%, only 35% viewed him favorably. That compares to Kelly's positive favorable to unfavorable rating of 48% to 42%. That
should be 80%.
It should be a blowout, but it's not. But it's good to know that at least in this particular case, again, I don't side with either party. I side with who's on the more pragmatic side of what's happening in our current state of affairs. And for me in this race, it would be Mark Kelly. Moving right along to Colorado, last week's poll in Colorado was from the Democratic firm Data for Progress, which gave Democratic Senator Michael Bennet a 9-point lead over Republican Joey Odea. His polling is 50% to 41%. Republicans have held out hope that Odea could beat Bennet, who won with just a plurality of the vote in 2010 and 2016. But the race hasn't come online, and Democrats' increasing margins here may be too much for Odea to overcome. Florida, Senator Rubio is running against Democratic Representative Val Demings in Florida. 2 new polls show he is ahead of her by 6 to 7 points.
I wish Val Deming the best.
I wish Val Deming the best as well. Georgia, it was an eventful last week where Republican nominee Herschel Walker is battling allegations he paid for an ex-girlfriend's abortion while also having a child with her. The Survey USA poll in Atlanta showed Warnock with a 12-point lead, and a one-day survey from Insider Advantage showed Warnock ahead by 3 points. Walker has not led a public poll in Georgia since end of summer.
We shall see.
We shall see. Nevada, 2 new polls last week stated Republican Adam Laxalt to 2-point lead over Democrat Catherine Cortez Masto. Laxalt has now been the leader in every poll in the Reach Clear Politics database since the summer, but within a very tight range of 1 to 4 points. New Hampshire, just 4 weeks removed from winning a divisive primary, Republican Don Bolduc is struggling to make headway in the polls against Democrat Senator Maggie Hassan. Hassan seems to be enjoying a roughly 7-point lead in the polling average, and the only poll to show Bolduc within striking distance came from a Republican-leaning group called Trafalgar Group. North Carolina. In the North Carolina race seems to be very tight. Despite leading the polling average, Republican Ted Budd is only at 45%, and last week's only poll gave him a 1-point advantage. The poll conducted by Survey USA showed both candidates with favorable and unfavorable ratings, hovering around 40%, befitting a race with a double-digit share of the votes still up for grabs. Ohio's J.D. Vance, he was the one behind the story of
hillbilly allergy.
Yeah. New polls in Ohio last week. No, sorry, there were no new polls in Ohio last week, but there is reason to believe the race remains close as Democratic candidate Tim Ryan strengthens against J.D. Vance, who seems to be weakening. But there's also reason to suspect Vance's lead could be larger than stated here. Ohio polls also massively underestimated Trump's win in 2020.
Fair enough. J.D. Vance is supposed to be a smart guy. He's a hedge fund guy and everything. But when he comes out here, he's not actually proposing any new policies. Your brand is, I'm a smart Republican, but he's not offering anything but culture war, just like all the dumb Republicans. You line up what J.D. Vance is saying in his speeches, and you line up what Herschel Walker says in his speeches. You know, there's a chasm between the two in terms of their IQ. They're saying the same shit.
Same script. And J.D. Vance has flipped with regard to the president of the last administration. At first, he was vehemently against him, and at some point flipped the script and became extremely pro him. I think that speaks to your point about following the script. Let's get to Pennsylvania. As you pointed out, the Pennsylvania election is a pretty contentious and interesting one. We've got Republican Dr. Oz running against Democrat John Fetterman, who, according to the most recent polls, is leading against Oz by 6 points, 46% to 40. That should be a blowout, in my opinion, but I'm glad to hear that Fetterman has the lead. Fetterman's lead has been cut in half over the past few months. He once led Oz by as many as 9 points in the Real Clear Politics average, but the Republican still has high negatives that cast doubts on his ability to get much closer. USA Today's Suffolk poll showed just 34% of voters have a favorable opinion of the celebrity surgeon turned politician, while 51% view Oz unfavorably. And my final state that I have data on is Wisconsin. The latest polls, which came out week before last, showed incumbent Republican Senator Ron Johnson retaining his lead against the trailing Democrat Mandela Barnes, according to all the polls across the summer. Wisconsin was also ground zero for the 2020 polling failure, with Trump and the Republican Party overperforming their standing in pre-election surveys on Election Day. And that is the latest polls with regard to where these candidates are in position for as we approach the midterm elections. What say you?
The polls are great. At the end of the day, we know there's likely to be a lot more turnout on the Republican side because of those just simple demographic statistics. So how many of those people, like, polls are supposed to represent a proportion of the population. How many of those people are actually going to get out there and vote? We will see. Also, at the same time, I have some views about how this recession will get handled, where there are some things, there are some ideas that at least smart, moderate Republicans have that should be listened to when it comes to dealing with a recession. I do not think raising taxes on anybody should have happened with the big spending bill that was just passed, given that we're in a recession. Even Barack Obama said you shouldn't raise taxes in a recession. Let's set all that aside for now, just to focus on the polls. The polls sound okay, but again, it'll come down to turnout. We can do a full breakdown on Pennsylvania. We can do a full breakdown on what to do about the recession at a later time. But anything that says that the Democrats could end up with a still split 50-50 Senate is actually a win for them, because statistically speaking, demographically speaking, historically speaking, they actually would be much more likely to lose and lose significantly.
You don't think abortion's giving them momentum?
I think abortion is the only reason why that we're looking at possibly having a tie at the end of all of this. If it weren't for that, the polls would show them about to get their asses kicked.
Fair enough.